So I'm going to paint this with you here. And I'm going to tell you as I go what colors I'm using for each of the bias of those primaries. And I'm going to give you some equivalents as well, because I use Daniel Smith, but you might be using different ones. So I will give you equivalents in other brands. So I'm going to start at the top with the green bias yellow. My green bias yellow is Hansa Yellow Light. Green bias yellow can also be known as lemon. Now the problem with lemon paints is that there is no lemon pigment. Lemon is the name of a color, it's not the name of a pigment. So different lemons in different brands can use a lot of different pigments to get their lemon, and they are not all equal. So I have here a list of a bunch of lemons from different brands. The one I use is the Hansa Yellow Light by Daniel Smith. The Dailorani Lemon Yellow is really good. It uses the same pigment. The Sennelier Lemon Yellow and the Schminke Lemon Yellow all use PY3. And PY3 is pretty much the only really good lemon or green bias yellow, because it's transparent, it's light fast, and it is very green bias. If you look at Winsor & Newton, they use a different pigment in their lemon yellow, and it's completely opaque, so it will turn the mixes very muddy very quickly. Winsor & Newton realized that, so they created a second lemon. They've got lemon yellow and they've got Winsor lemon that they created when they realized that the lemon yellow wasn't very good. The Winsor lemon is a very good pigment, transparent, light fast, single pigment, everything you want, but it's not lemon. If you compare to the PY3, it goes more towards mid-yellow. It's not completely green bias. So it ends up that Winsor & Newton actually don't really have a good lemon in their range, or a good green bias yellow. Now the orange bias yellow in my palette is Hansa Yellow Deep. You might have Indian Yellow or New Gamboge. All of those are orange biased. The thing with Indian Yellow and New Gamboge again is that there isn't a single pigment that you get for those, because in the real Indian Yellow and the real Gamboge are no longer produced, so manufacturers are using substitutes, and not all manufacturers use the same substitute. And the other problem with the orange bias yellow is that the most popular one was PY153, but that's been discontinued. So now brands have got to find a substitute to the substitute. And some of them are resorting to having mixed pigments. So this is something that you have to be careful about when you have a paint. You want it to be as much as possible a single pigment, because if you have a paint with several pigments in it and you mix it with another paint with several pigments in it, you're mixing too many pigments together and it's going to turn muddy. But if all the colors on your color wheel are made of a single pigment, even if you mix 2 or 3 or even 4, you will be able to keep cleaner colors. So all the colors I'm showing you today are all made of a single pigment. After doing each color in the color wheel, I'm going to show you a piece of art that I've done in which I've used the colors that I've just talked about. So this is the sunflower I did with the yellows. And this is a good example how I never use a single color for any subject. Like if I have a yellow subject, I'm not going to use a single yellow. And partly because the chances of the subject being exactly the same hue as a color, as a paint in my palette, are close to none. It's not going to be exactly the same. So I will always need to mix something anyway. But also because when you look at any subject, it's never a flat color. There's always loads of variations, and you can't get those variations quite as well if you use only a color. So for example, in the sunflowers, for the petals, I used 3 different yellows. The underneath of the petal is Mayan yellow. There isn't really an equivalent for Mayan yellow because it's a Daniel Smith paint and it's made of a clay base. And it's pretty much a unique color. It's quite chalky. It's not opaque, but it is chalky in appearance. And it was perfect for the underside of the petals. On the top, I used a base of Queen of Talon yellow. That's a very saturated yellow, which is between green bias and mid yellow. And I like it for yellow subject because of the saturation and the purity. It really is a glowing color. And then at the base of the petal, I added some Hansa Yellow Deep because it was going more towards orange biased at the base of the petals. And you can see with all those yellows, I've achieved a good level of saturation, but also quite a lot of variations in the color.